Good afternoon to all. Can someone confirm, is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes, then we'll start. Okay, good afternoon to all. Today we will look into last part of the first chapter, some design philosophies related to fatigue and fracture we will look into. So this design philosophies means various ideas or concepts which people follow whenever they are planning to do fatigue based design. Okay, so let us look into that. Fatigue life, whenever we say, it could be the total number of cycles required to obtain a complete fracture or to obtain initial damage. You can take various concepts. Say we have seen various steps in the fatigue. First is crack initiation. This is a first step we have seen. Okay. Then crack propagation. Then crack propagation. And finally there is fracture. Okay. So in your design, if you are considering all three stages, you are not interested to know when crack is initiated. You are not interested to know how the crack is propagating. And you only want to know what is the total number of cycles required to cause the final fracture, total number, which includes crack initiation time, which includes crack propagation time. One significant large size crack is reached and then faster fracture you will observe within 1 or 2 cycles. So total number of cycles. So one approach could be using total number of cycles to failure. Failure here means up to fracture. Okay. Or as one more designer. Now this total failure concept could be one designer's idea. Say designer X. Designer X is using total life model. One more designer, he might think about going with the fracture mechanics based approach. He will say that every material has a flaw. Every material has a flaw or defect of some significant size. Let us say some significant size crack is there. That means crack initiation stage will not come. For designer, one more designer Y. Designer Y. Okay. He will say that as we know every material contains flaw, the design what I have made is already having some amount of crack initiated. Then I am only interested to know about the crack propagation life, total life for crack propagation only. This is another concept. Are there any initiation model? This is question I have put it for you. You think for a while. Are there any crack initiation models? Initiation life models. If you assume that or by our default material science understanding, we know that each and every material has a flaw. Therefore, that initial flaw what is there can only considered as the initial crack. But designers do not do such a way always. The question here you should ask is, to say a crack is initiated, you must define answer for one question. What is the size of that flaw? This question you have to answer before you are going to decide whether to go for only propagation life model or whether you want to choose the only initiation life model. So it depending on what is the size of flaw. Usually we say every product has a defect, but that defect is in nano level, very, very negligible. In a bulk large component, you consider a shaft, power transmission shaft of an automobile or maybe machinery. It is a micro scale. I have shown you in our earlier discussions, various size scale an engineer is looking into. In a macro scale component, a point defect, a vacancy defect, which is in the nanoscale unit cell level, is insignificant. It is of no use. So it is as good as saying that material is not having a defect. Okay. Suppose you find some crack which is at some micron level. Then we say there is a crack which is initiated. So the discussion on whether to go for total life model, whether to take the only propagation model or consider two-step model, the total cycle required for crack initiation and crack propagation. Now these discussion lies, these decision lies with this particular question. What is the size of existing defect? The basis for fracture mechanics is every material has a flaw and that flaw is already of a level greater than what you say crack initiation or at the end stage of crack initiation. When you say crack initiation is there, after that only propagation cycles are there. There is not required further cycle for crack initiation. Crack is already there of some sufficient size. Then whatever the load you apply over the component that is already having a crack, all those cycles what you apply load cycle are going for crack propagation and final fracture only. In that case, the design model is propagation life model. Propagation life model. Okay. Propagation life model. All fracture mechanics related models are propagation life model only, because the basic assumption for this is there exists a significant size crack, or to say that the defect what is there in the material is sufficient to state crack is initiated. Then we can talk about propagation life model. If the flaw size is very, very negligible, 1 point defect of some small nano level 10 to the power minus 9, 10 to the power minus 12, that level, then for a macro scale engineer, a structural engineer, that flaw is negligible. We say that component is defect free, and now some amount of cycles are required to cause the initial damage, or all those defects should move, that defect should grow and finally reach up to some microscopic level to say that crack is initiated. So to reach up to that stage, some cycles are required. So that becomes the initiation life. If you are only interested in determining that, interested in determining when some significantly large size microscopic crack is developed, you want to retire your model from service, then you can go for initiation life models. Altogether, you want to consider initiation as well as propagation together, then it becomes the total life model. So these are the various design concept or philosophies which you can look into. There are further Further, this is the most basic classification of or the concept for the fatigue design. We will see later another four specialized categories or design philosophies related to fatigue that later stage we'll see. First, let us look into, now you got a thorough idea what is meant by total life, what is propagation life, and what is initiation life models. Okay. It is very difficult to have the initiation life model. Therefore, most of the theorems or most of the equations what we use that are either total life models or the propagation life model. Now, total life model includes initiation life model also. Initiation, crack initiation is there in the total life. But differentiating, obtaining only the initiation life models is very difficult because it is a phenomena at microscopic and lower size level. Lower size level. Crack has to initiate somewhere from 10 to the power minus 9 and reach up to the size of microscopic level to say that crack is initiated. When you observe macroscopic level size crack, then it is of some significantly large size crack from where fracture can occur. Okay, so these are some of the idea into the fatigue. So total life approach, as you know, the SN approach or the high cycle fatigue life approach, what we are using, that can be put into the total life model. Now, strain life approach, it is a debatable to say whether it is a total life approach or the propagation life approach. However, since we are not measuring here the initial size of the crack or defect, okay, we will still put this strain life approach into the total life model. But there are ambiguities. There are people who say that strain life approach is belonging to the propagation life category. It is because of the reason this approach is much better adopted for low cycle fatigue. However, there is no such boundary that strain life approach should be adopted only for low cycle approach. It can be adopted even in the high cycle fatigue zone. Okay, so depending on what context we talk, we can put strain life approach into the propagation life model or total life model. To be safer side, the best way to put strain life model also into the total life model approach. Okay, because we are not considering what is the initial failure already there, and from there we are using the strain life approach in this particular type of total life approach model. Okay, there are concepts that we'll see later. Okay, and more idea I will provide when we'll talk about the chapter 3 on strain life approach. At this stage, if you consider the whether it is stress life approach, SN approach, or whether it is strain life approach, we can consider into the total life model, which includes both the life for crack initiation and crack propagation. Both is considered in this particular model. Altogether, total you will not get a differentiation. How much cycles for propagation, how much cycle for initiation. Some other theories are there which can be incorporated along with this model. That will give us what is initiation and what is propagation life. That we will see with the cumulative damage theory discussion that time. Let us not worry about that now. Okay. From experimental point of view, we do tests on laboratory specimens. There are certain conditions are there to prepare a laboratory specimen. Earlier, I have shown you the standard ASTM E1823, which discusses about the fatigue. So in that standard, you can observe various cautions to be considered for specimen preparation. The moment we say smooth, the word called smooth indicate a mirror finished specimen. That means surface finish is of greatest level. Or we would like to say that nil defect, negligible amount of defects are there in the component. That type of specimen need to be prepared. And in such case, and we know fatigue is a surface phenomena most often. The damage, fatigue damage initiates at the surface. Therefore, smooth surface, best surface finish model crack will not initiate itself very easily. And 90% of the load what you apply will go for initiating the crack. Initiating the crack. And once crack is initiated, from there you see only 10% of the cycles are sufficient for the crack to propagate. Yes, any queries? Anyone? Okay, fine. So, however, it is a general theorem put forward. 90% of the cycles required for a crack initiate. Every time it is not like that. It varies from component to component, the type of load, nature of load, magnitude of load. There are several parameters. Earlier in the last class, we have seen fatigue life affecting factors. If there is a corrosive environment, then along with the applied load, that corrosive environment also aids the crack initiation. Then only 50% of the life is completed, by then crack could have been initiated. Okay, such things are there. In general, ideal condition as per the laboratory test specimen condition, if we consider, then in a defect-free specimen, here the meaning of saying defect-free is whatever small defects are there, those are of negligible level. Okay, because in practice we cannot make any component defect-free. But that defect is very negligible compared to the its component size, shape, and other factors. Okay. Therefore, in such laboratory test specimen, when you apply and test it, 90% of the life or 90% of the load cycles will go for crack initiation and remaining for the propagation. So this is a breakup when we say about the total life. Okay. Various techniques are there to predict the life, whether the load is mean stress based. We will see in a short while various type of loading patterns, fatigue loads, stress concentrations, environment, the nature of load, multi-axial, uniaxial, shear load, torsion load, bending load, various types are there, as well as multi-axial load is there. You do tension test in the SWAM lab, that is only uniaxial, one direction you have pulled. Simultaneously, 2 direction we can pull a specimen, 3 direction we can pull a specimen, or various type of load can be applied. Okay, and variable amplitudes. It is not a constant amplitude is not maintained. Some idea I have given you about this in the previous class. Okay, so these are all factors which affects the total life. Okay, so under high cycle, usually high cycle means we have to apply large number of load cycle before component fails. Now to apply large number of load cycles, what you have to do? You have to apply with low load. That is the meaning of low stress fatigue situation. Whenever we say high cycle fatigue, in other words, it means that the amount of load you applied is low. The moment I say amount of load applied is low means the stresses developed in the component are low, much lower, much lesser than the elastic strength of the material. At least 1/3 of the elastic strength, half or less than that of the elastic strength. That is the working load you apply over the component to obtain the high cycle fatigue. Okay. When you apply such a small cycle, the component will take large number of cycles before it undergo failure. So that comes under the high cycle fatigue region. When we talk about low cycle fatigue region, then the load what you apply over the component is quite large magnitude. We will operate or we'll apply a load which is close enough to elastic limit, elastic strength of the material or yield strength of the material, or at least greater than half of the elastic strength of the limit. At least that we will apply. And when you apply high amount of load, large load, component will fail in very low number of cycles. That is the idea of saying low cycle fatigue. And when we apply large amount of load, representing that in terms of stress becomes a bit difficult. Stress becomes a bit difficult because you will not find the linear relationship between stress and deformation. As we go towards the yield point, you can see reimagine your stress strain curve. Reimagine your stress strain curve. Sorry. So you have strain, you have stress, you have small linear portion, and then it will transform to non-linear to some extent, upper yield point, lower yield point, and then go ahead. In case of steel material, for example, you can clearly distinguish. What you can see, there is a small region where you do not have the linearity, and it becomes difficult to properly relate stress and strain, because stress is now in the non-linear region, not at all proportional to strain, where Hooke's law prevails. Hooke's law actually prevails. This in a strength of material. If I take class, I have told this numerous times. Okay, what Hooke's law tells, stress is proportional to strain only in the proportionality limit, that is somewhere here in this zone where there is a linearity. But identifying proportionality limit point P is difficult. What we interpret, even obtaining elastic limit is difficult. Therefore, people say that stress is proportional to strain up to elastic limit. Okay. Obtaining proportionality limit is anyways difficult. Obtaining elastic limit is also difficult. Therefore, in design, MD1, you have taken yield strength sigma y. All your MD1 design theories, either they take yield or ultimate. If it is a ductile material, you go with the yield strength criteria. If it is a brittle material, you go with the ultimate strength criteria, because assuming there is no yielding at all in brittle material. Ultimate is equal to yield. This is the assumption. So ideally, it is ultimate is nothing but yield for a brittle material. Okay. Anyways, let us not go into that side now. So what happens is when we apply or operate at bit higher stress levels, larger stress magnitudes, it becomes difficult to represent the applied load in terms of the stress. And better way is go with the strain rate or deformation, because strain rate is large now. You can see large strain amplitudes are there, which can easily absorb. If it is a small stress you are applying, obtaining the small zone of strain is very difficult. Okay. Therefore, in a low cycle fatigue regime, it is much better to represent with the strain life approach. Even if you use high cycle life approach, it will give you wrong result. It will not give you the practical results. It is not that we cannot apply high cycle fatigue region, high cycle approach, those equation. You can use the equation, but that equation will not give you right answer. This you have to remember. Equation will give answer, any value you give as input, it will give a value. That is not the thing here. You are a designer. You must be aware which equation to use and when. In a particular range you have to use. Strain life approach can be used anywhere, even in the plastic zone region also to some extent. Okay, so strain life approach is possible. Stress life approach is not possible, not at all suited for low cycle fatigue region because of this reason, where stress cannot be predicted properly when there is some non-linearity. Okay. So this is about all total life model approach, various phenomena we can look into. Fine. So the low cycle fatigue approach to fatigue design has found nowadays particularly widespread use in most of the ground vehicle industries. Make a note of this word. We have put here ground vehicle. So your automobile. I have not mentioned here aerospace. Aerospace is riskier. Okay, think about that. Risk involved is more. Then even the low cycle fatigue approach, strain life approach is not sufficient for aerospace industry. People used it in the past. They are using it for some component. It is not that entire aircraft you apply the same concept. Certain parts which are too risky to design, go for one particular approach. Certain parts which have some moderate risk here, you take another approach. Some other parts you take one more approach. There are multiple approaches possible. Take that and design. Because you go for too detailed analysis, it takes long time and difficult calculations, larger equations. So fracture mechanics approach we are planning for entire aircraft, it is not a practical scenario to think of. We have to always plan for mixed analysis, certain portion with the strain life, certain portion with high cycle fatigue, certain portion with the fracture mechanics related approach. Laboratory wise, theory wise, when we discuss, we can talk about each and every individually. Okay. So now the current stage you find low cycle fatigue approach, strain life approach in ground vehicles, what we available today. Okay. But many people are yet to master with high cycle fatigue, even today. If you recall the history, what we discussed, high cycle fatigue life concept was bought somewhere around 1850s by Euler. Euler diagram or SN diagram, 1950s, 1859. During this time, SN approach or stress life approach or high cycle fatigue was developed. From there, it took long time, more than 100 years to reach up to somewhere around with the strain life approach or low cycle fatigue regime. From there again, fracture approach, 1920s, Griffith proposed, but no one realized the important till 1960s when till Paris came out with his equation. Irwin proposed his model in 1950s. Okay, so there were limitations. Theory will develop slowly. Now, as an engineer, you must decide which one to apply depending on the application. So if you are planning to use fatigue life analysis for ground vehicle related severe parts, riskier parts of the ground vehicles, then low cycle fatigue approach is recommended. Okay, this is to achieve optimum design. It is not that you cannot go with high cycle fatigue approach. You can go. You can go with, but by the time you plan that high cycle fatigue approach, your component becomes larger, bulkier, and heavy to sustain that much load and give you high number of cycles of life. Okay. Today, designer think about reducing weight, going for smaller and smaller miniaturized parts that has to take the same load which was taken earlier. So driver is same, loading conditions are same, other parameters you have to change with the design. This is how design will evolve. Okay, the customer requirement is same. He want to travel from one place to other over the same road. So let us assume road is also not changed. Same fashion road is there. Only vehicle now are changing from bulky, sturdy, heavy designs like Ambassador car of olden days to the modern day vehicle. You can see nice shock-proof designs, all that. Design will go on evolving. There is no end for that. As a designer, we must think which approach, where to fit, when to fit. Is it possible enough to fit for? Is it cost worthy? That is also important to think. Okay, fine. So another type of models that we could.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question in the previous slide.
Yeah. Ask me.
Yeah. Sir, why can you explain why is like low cycle approach better for ground vehicles than high cycle?
That is what I was discussing since 10 minutes.
Sir, no. Like specifically, one thing that you said that for high cycle it'll make the material bulky, but
Ah,
in low cycle fatigue we have the stress values are higher. So won't
yes,
that also require the material to be bulky?
I didn't get. I mean, you want to say, okay, if you are applying larger load, you want to make your component large, its size large. That is
Stronger.
what you want to mean?
Yes, sir, because the stress values are higher.
Okay, okay, okay. Now, let us take your design criteria. You are considering your design criteria as elastic limit, elastic stress. Okay. What is mean by low cycle fatigue? This question you are asking because you don't know about low cycle fatigue at present.
Oh,
I
okay.
will mark here. Okay, no, or here there is no space. Some slide. Okay, I will erase this. Give me a moment. or I will directly show you SN diagram. That is easy. Give me a moment here, 1 minute. Let us go and look into SN diagram. Okay. Okay. Look into this diagram. Later I will explain in the high cycle fatigue. But here, is it visible now? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. See, low cycle fatigue region means usually when the life is, this is a cutoff region. This is a cutoff region. Okay. It's not necessarily the yield point. It could be somewhere around elastic or lower. Since elastic is close to yield, people write this as yield. Okay. And ultimate point here. Sometimes we even mark here true fracture strength also. True fracture strength, not the engineering fracture strength. True fracture strength, which is higher than ultimate value. Okay. That also people mark here at this constant here. Now, true fracture strength or ultimate strength is a one where component fails at 10 to the power 1 cycle, just with one cycle. Sorry, just one cycle, 10 to the power 0. One cycle component fails. Then if at all you are loading a component with a stress value of this much magnitude, some amount lesser than the ultimate strength, you load it and release it before reaching to the ultimate strength. You can do approximately 10 number of times if you operate at this particular stress level. Let us say maybe 0.98 times the ultimate. You are applied that value, you will get 10 number of cycles. You go to 100. If you want to achieve 100 number of cycle life, you want to operate at somewhere around 0.95 times of ultimate strength. So like this, when you come and reach the yield point, the stress here somewhere around, it is not always required. So we consider as an approximation, it is 0.9 times of the ultimate strength value as a yield point. So if you operate a component at 0.9 times of the ultimate strength, you find a life of somewhere around 10 to the power 3. Now this is a cutoff region between the low cycle and high cycle fatigue region. Whatever you talk above that, that means less than yield, or actually it is less than elastic as a designer's point of view. That is why it is written here elastic region. You can observe here at the top, and other portion is written as plastic region. Okay. So elastic region means we have to operate or apply the load which are much lesser than the elastic to be in this particular zone. And beyond 10 to the power 6, if you want to consider here, we say it is very high cycle fatigue. Very high cycle fatigue. That is a modern day classification. Earlier it was not there. Now people are venturing into this domain also. More than 10 to the power 6. Here it is, this range is 10 to the power 3 to 10 to the power 6. This is discussion is with respect to steel material. Therefore, I am writing 10 to the power 6. So with the material also this discussion changes. That also you have to remember. So for steel, approximately 10 to the power 3 to 10 to the power 6 or greater than that, we put as a high cycle fatigue regime. Here we put as a low cycle fatigue regime, LCF. Now, if your component is experiencing heavy loads, large loads, if you have used stress life approach equation, SN approach equation, it predicts stress is proportional to strain. And the load what you are applying, you see in the low cycle fatigue regime is not even in the elastic region. It is greater than that. Okay. So if you use high cycle fatigue equation, you will not get the required result. Now one more statement I want to make. Are we going to apply plastic load in automobile? We are not applying. No, we are not applying. Then isn't it sufficient to consider LCF, stress life approach? Stress life approach equation is very crude equation. Crude equation. It will only give rough estimation. Rough estimation. Let us say, let us take this as midpoint. midpoint, and stress of somewhere around maybe 0.75 times of ultimate. Let us take 0.75 times of ultimate. If you use high cycle fatigue, that equation might have predicted this 10 to the power 5, 10 to the power 5 number of cycles. NF 10 to the power 5. NF is equal to 10 to the power 5 cycles. But if you have used at the same time low cycle fatigue equation, then for a same stress value, it will give you 10 to the power 4 number of cycles. Now you tell me which is better. Whether low cycle fatigue approach is better to apply here or high cycle fatigue is applied better. Keeping diameter same, keeping size of the component same.
High cycle.
High cycle is better, huh? See, you are misinterpreting here. You are thinking high cycle is giving higher number of cycle. Giving higher number of cycle is risky, no?
Yeah, it's a
High
low
cycle
cycle we have lower.
See, low cycle fatigue approach or strain life approach tells you that the life is 10 to the power 4 cycle and it is more accurate. High cycle fatigue tell you that life is 10 to the power 5 more, but in reality when you take your vehicle, it will not take 10 to the power 5 cycle. It will not give you, it will fail much early. Okay. How to predict that? High cycle fatigue approach you have used, you could not predict. Low cycle fatigue approach used, you have still predicted closer to that. Practically, it might fail even 10 to the power 3 also. Okay, so that is the uncertainty you have. And it comes because of the mathematical model. The stress cannot be actually predicted. The real-time stress to a applied load is not a true stress what you are writing. Because stress equation for axial load, it is load by area, and this area is continuously changing. This area is not instantaneous area. This area you are taking A naught. Okay, this is the problem. You are taking A naught. The stress value what you predict is not at all correct. One is the non-linearity you find with the equation as you raise the stress levels. Other one is instantaneous area what you are taking. That is also not correct. So there are certain factors where high cycle fatigue approach cannot give you the right answer. It will give you rough approximation. To get much more closer, if you apply the strain life approach, even in the high cycle fatigue regime zone, it is much better prediction. However, strain life equation is large. It is complex, much large equation, much complex equation, and obtaining strain life data is also very difficult. It is not available usually. SN approach data nowadays everywhere available. There are limitations, there are advantages, everything is there. But why a low cycle is better? It will give you much better prediction because of its modeling. Its modeling is like that. Therefore, it is said that you have to go for low cycle fatigue approach for a ground vehicle rather than high cycle fatigue approach. Is that clear? Okay.
Yes, sir. So
It is a recommendation. I would like to say it is a recommendation. It is the not hard and fast rule that you cannot apply cycle fatigue. You can. It is a recommendation. By practice, we know that low cycle fatigue approach, or here rather than saying low cycle approach, I would like to say strain life approach, which can be applied anywhere. Okay, which can be applied anywhere, high cycle region or low cycle fatigue region. Strain life approach is better. This is a recommendation. That is it. Okay. Is that fine?
yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Let us go forward. The other one is now propagation life model. Here we require NDT techniques to be used. Okay, for flaw detection. What is the basis? The fracture mechanics approach basics. Basis for propagation life model is every material has a flaw. Every material has, or every component what you design, material or component, whatever the product you are making, every component or material has a flaw. This is the basis to use the fracture mechanics or propagation life model, because already there is flaw, no? Already there is crack. then what you are thinking about initiation? Crack is already initiated. Now next question lies how that crack is propagating. At what rate that crack is propagating? How fast that crack is propagating when you apply repeated loads. Okay. To address this, we have to go for propagation life model, and fracture mechanics approach is best example for that. Okay. Now many a time what happens in components where there are risks involved, maybe nuclear reactors, very riskier situations, aerospace industries, several riskier situations are there. Crack will be there. You only want to know whether it is propagating or not with applied number of cycle and how it is propagating, at what rate it is propagating. So what you have to do, first take NDT test. Whether dye penetrant test is only for the surface crack. You will not get a quantitative analysis. Only you can observe what are the crack and all. Measuring is difficult. Measuring the crack size may be X-ray technique, laser based technique, or ultrasonic based techniques can be used in a NDT. Okay. Those technique you use determine what is the existing size initially before you put the component into service. Then apply the load and see how that crack is propagating, how that crack is responding to the applied load. And then calculate every time with every stress value, what is the stress concentration at the notch root or at the crack tip. That is the idea here, not the bulk component throughout the component. At the crack tip only you have to plan, because at the crack tip there is severe stress concentration. Severe, very severe. And that much times, that much stress concentration times KT times that whatever the bulk stress you are finding is multiplied. Okay. So if this particular stress now goes beyond the yield, you must keep multiplying by KT whatever stress you have less than yield, so that crack will not open further. To avoid crack opening further, you have to plan this. Okay. So that is what is the idea of fracture mechanics. Through this, you predict what is the safe stress to apply with the crack and operate. And every time after every service, you have to do this NDT and measure the crack size. This is what is done in aircraft industry. Or else it is very riskier. After every flight must be rigorously checked for critical components, not the entire flight, the critical components usually. Critical components are tested by NDT and crack size is measured and it is evaluated. Can it take next flight or not? That decision has to be made. So depending on the company, depending on the materials used, depending on the flight history, that size of the crack to say when to retire going to vary. Okay. So that is the idea of propagation life models in order to avoid straightforward catastrophic failure, because once the crack is initiated, then crack propagation is much faster. Whenever you apply load, the total number of cycles required to crack initiation is always more than crack propagation. Now, when we say already there is crack, now you can only concentrate on how to control the propagation of that crack. Okay, so this is another way of the design approach. Okay, design model. Okay. So the choice of the critical size of the fatigue crack may be based on fracture toughness of the material. We will look about this property later when we talk about the linear elastic fracture mechanics, chapter 4, and dynamic fracture, chapter 5. That time we will discuss more onto this. Fracture toughness means what, how to predict that. Okay, what are the various values are there, how it will vary. So the understanding of plane stress, plane strain, what is taught in your lower semester with the strength of material and design of machine elements is important when we talk about fracture toughness. It will vary depending on plate thickness, one of the important factor. We'll talk about that term later, but if you understand at this stage that whenever you have to deal with the crack propagation related theorem, then you must aware about a material property called fracture toughness. Okay, this fracture toughness is not what you find in your CHARP impact test. that it is not that value. It is with respect to the crack and related to that size, that domain. What you find with Charpy or isotest, that is a bulk deformation. Okay, it is not that value here. We'll look into that, what it is, and more detail into that. Okay, you can derive from there to some extent. You can have rough idea, but it is not that value right now, straightforward here. Okay. Anyways, so other things about the fracture mechanics we'll see when we go to that topic. Here with the propagation model, if you understand, it is related to fracture mechanics and related its failures related aspects are required, you can consider. So this approach is usually adopted in the applications where catastrophic failure can provide ample risks to human lives or other things. So therefore, aerospace or nuclear industries are best example where you can apply this particular method. Then it doesn't mean that you cannot take this approach to your ground vehicle also. You can take, not a problem. Now, as a designer, you have to justify whether taking this approach to ground vehicles is better, less costlier, or less efforts are required, then go ahead. But usually we know now it is not that easy. NDT techniques required, continuous monitoring is required. It is not possible or not practical enough to be put forward for a ground vehicle at this stage at least. Okay. Maybe with the evolution, with the simpler equations or better models available, software evolution, big data evolution, maybe in future people can think about that. Okay. So this comparison already I have given in the first slide some intro. What is meant by total life? What is propagation life? Now you only have the idea when to plan for which model. Some idea at least you have. Okay. And what is meant by crack initiation lifetime? What is meant by crack propagation lifetime? So total life model means both. We are not differentiating how much is required for initiation, how much propagation. Altogether total life you are going to state. So in many structural alloys, now resistance to the growth of long fatigue crack generally increases with increase in grain size. Now this we discussed in the last class itself. I have explained about intergranular crack growth and intragranular crack growth, both. And there I have explained about what is the effect of fine grain, what is the effect of coarse grain. So that is what is mentioned here. With increase in grain size means coarse grain, that will impart ductility to the material. Therefore, yield strength is decreases, material becomes softer. If you have coarse grain structure, then crack propagation can be attenuated, its rate can be slowed down. Okay. If you have fine grain structure, then crack initiation may be attenuated easily. Crack initiation is very difficult in hard material. But once crack is initiated, then propagation is faster in brittle material or hard material. Then ductility is required. That is why designers or manufacturing engineer also today, they go for hard surfaces to some depth, maybe 1 mm depth or 2 mm depth case. We say case, hardened case. You can create by various methods, whether it is heat treatment, case hardening, or whether it is mechanical treatment, whether it is other chemical or laser alloying treatment, whatever you want to follow. Surface has to be controlled because these are all crack initiation usually occurs from the surface. And inner core is retained as a softer or tougher to take the shocks. Best example, bearing surfaces and bearing other bulk material, gear teeth and the gear bulk material. These are all regular examples where people make use of this idea. Okay, play with the coarse and fine grains so that the life of the component can be increased. Okay, fine. So total life approach is quite simpler to adapt in our regular day-to-day life compared to the propagation life models. Okay, having initiation life models is very difficult. You have to go back to the theorems of physics and material science to that, because the size scale you deal with the initiation life models is 10 to the power minus 9 to 10 to the power minus 6 level. Okay, such equations are there. Mathematical models are there for that also. By using that becomes very, very difficult when you talk about bulk size structure, a power transmitting shaft, a much larger bulk scale structure. In that you talk about micron scale, nanoscale level design. Then by the time you complete that with the nanoscale multiplied by your total size to reach up to the bulk size, it will be too many years. You complete the analysis. Okay, so somewhere engineer has to do some averaging work that will has to happen. So whether it is propagation life model or total life model, this decision engineer has to take based on situation, based on the risk involved, based on the nature of the load applied, based on the material also. Because each material responds differently to the applied load. For polymer, it could be different theory. For metal, it could be different theory. Okay. For elastomers, it could be different theory. Therefore, with the material of interest, suitable model must be chosen. Corresponding properties must be selected. Simply, you cannot go and pick equation and solve in a fatigue-based design. Several factors are there which must be considered before a designer makes a decision on selecting a suitable approach. Okay. With this, we'll look into the further fatigue life design philosophies. Now you know two categories, whether total life model and then initiation life model or the propagation life model. Okay, initiation life model will not discuss much in our course here. We'll only rely with total life model and propagation life model. So we have here SN approach and the strain life approach. Both comes under the total life model, where we have now here dA by dN and delta K indicates the fracture toughness. So dA is the incremental crack growth, dN is the incremental life. So this is actually the fracture mechanics approach. Growth rate of the crack, dA by dN means how much crack length is growing with every cycle. Okay, A is crack length, N is the life. dA by dN is the range, a value within this every increment, how it is growing. Okay, so that is what this is fracture mechanics approach. Therefore, we can say it is a propagation model. Propagation model. Okay. Now, there are people who are using two-stage models. Two-stage model. Now, what is meant by two-stage models? Here, though we say total life model, strain life approach can better give you initiation life. It will give the initiation life clearly compared to SN approach. SN approach is a bulk. It will not clearly define the initiation because there is no plastic term is involved in the its equation. That we'll see later when we go to that chapter in the SN approach. You see the equation. It is only elastic stress based equation. We cannot even apply in the plastic zone. So when there is a plastic zone, plasticity term, then you say that material is yielded. Material is yielded or plastically deformed. To say the plastically deformed, to model that plasticity term must come into the equation. So strain life equation is having that initiation, that elasticity and the plasticity both. The moment plastic term grows larger, significance of elastic term comes down in the equation, in the strain life equation. So for a two-stage model, till you say that significantly large size crack is there initiated, we use strain life approach, and then we will go for fracture mechanics or propagation model. That is a two-stage model. So we use here two approach. Stage one, strain life approach, till we find the crack size sufficiently large enough to say crack is initiated, AI. And once AI is there, in the second stage propagation life model, fracture mechanics approach are adopted to see how this crack is growing with every cycle, dA by dN. This is what is two-stage model. Okay. People follow all these in industry depending on their requirement. Okay. Now, based on this, we can have infinite life design. We can have safe life design. We can have fail-safe design, and we can have damage-tolerant design. Okay, let us look into what all these, and more importantly, usually you get confused with safe life and fail-safe. Okay, please look into these terms. Do not get confused. It is rightly put. There is no spelling mistake. Safe life design, and next is a safe fail or fail safe design. Can anyone of you want to give something before we look into this topic? Any idea what you are getting by looking into this? Can someone want to highlight your views? First one, starting from first. What is meant by infinite life? What is safe life? What is fail safe? And what is damage tolerance? Can you give your insights or something? What is coming to your mind when you look into this word? Some of you can share. Who want to go forward? Please go ahead.
Sir, the third design is more conservative in nature, and the second design, safe life design, it's not conservative in the sense the materials required or the limits that we put on the material are generous in nature. They are higher than the third one.
Okay. We'll see. Okay, fine. Any further thing you want to add on remaining two?
So maybe in the third one, it will prevent the component from failing. Like it is just preventing it from failing, whereas the second one, it doesn't assume that the component is going to fail. It might prevent for yielding also.
Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other things? Why only look into 2 and 3? Look for first one, infinite life, damage tolerant also. Or
The infinite life design is when we take like the endurance limit to be the criteria,
okay.
so that it lasts beyond 10⁻⁶ cycles.
Okay. Okay, fine. Okay. Anyways, you have some idea, some guessing. You have done a nice, good effort. You made something. You try to relate what you can make out from the heading. Okay. Here I will give one statement each on everything, and then I will go to detailed discussion on that. As the name indicate here, infinite, the meaning is component should not fail at all for infinite number of cycles. Okay, infinite life means component has infinity amount of cycle taking life. No matter you purchase today, your son can also use that, your grandson also can use that, afterwards also it can be used. The component is never going to fail. That is the idea of saying infinite. Practically achieving that may be an issue, various other reasons. One or the other time, every material in this earth is having certain life, that is different. But the designer's point of view, by using the available mathematical equations, what you predict, and you say that if you operate at this stress level, component will never fail. As Ayush said, endurance limit we say take for that. Endurance limit will assure you minimum 10⁶ number of cycles life for steel material. If it is aluminum or copper, we take 10⁸ as the endurance limit. If it is titanium or nickel alloys, we take 10⁷ as the endurance limit. After that, very few engineering applications are there. Only static structural applications will come. Therefore, infinite life. There is very few cyclic load. There is nothing to talk about that. Cyclic, it is as it is there. Today you build a house, that I said, no, it will be there for long, or any other component. If you are designing for that much stronger life, then component becomes too rigid, too bulkier. Okay, and lot of wastage in the current trend. But there is no point in making infinite life design. Components, parts, interest of the people changes over a time period. That structure you are planning for infinite life is no longer be required for people after 50 years. Okay, so that is the idea. And theoretically it is infinite, but in reality it is not infinite. In reality, large life large life cycle. You use that till you get tired, not the component. Till you get tired, you use and then you throw. That type of design you want to make, you can plan for infinite life. Now, safe life design means till you expect the component to work satisfactorily, up to their component should not fail. That is the idea. So you are a designer, you are telling that this component what you have designed will survive for 10 to the power 3 cycles. Will survive for 10 to the power 3 cycle means the component should survive for 10 to the power 3. The moment you apply just more than 10 to the power 3, 1001 cycle, the component may fail. That you are not assuring as a designer. But as a designer, you are telling within your design limits, if the component is operated, it will give you the defined life safely without failing. Okay. 1001 cycle, you don't know. That you are not telling it. That is more than 10 to the power 3. Okay. So sometimes the safe life structure can give you 10 to the power 4 cycle also. That is excessive design consideration you have taken. You might take some factor of safety in design. That will give you 10 to the power 4. Now many people will tell, no, say for example, automobile tire designed for so many kilometers. Let us say 30,000 kilometers. Some person will say, tell that in 30,000 kilometers, I was supposed to change, but I ran it for 40,000 kilometers. I didn't change. That is surplus. What you get, that is good. It depending on several other conditions. Engineer is designed maybe for a bit rigorous driving. You are very nice driver. So you got that additional life. He has kept some factor of safety also in his design. When you say 10 to the power 3 number of cycle is for the failure, some factor of safety definitely engineer will keep for uncertainties. So you have not exceeded those uncertainties, not experienced uncertainty, you will get extra life. That is different. That is different. But to the extent what a designer is saying, let us say up to 10 to the power 3 component should not fail means component should not fail up to there. That is safe life. So whatever the life you are defining as a designer, up to their component should not fail. That is the idea. That is safe life. To the defined period of life, the component works safely. Now, what is fail safe? Here you have to pay a bit attention. Fail safe or safe fail. Rather than I say fail safe fail, you can think, you get some idea. That means as a designer, you have designed for 10 to the power 3 number of cycles of life. But suppose because of some uncertainties in the design, component fails at 10 to the power 3 number of cycle, 2 number of cycle, component fails. Okay. Now who to blame for? Designer? You have not done proper design? It cannot be. It depending on what is the percentage of reliability you want. Our designer thinks. Okay. Your case may be extreme. Therefore, your component failed with 10 to the power 2. One person's case is much lesser than uncertainties. He might get with the same design 10 to the power 4. And designer has given average life of 10 to the power 3. Okay. The question here is, designer knows that component is going to fail even before what he has told. But for that reason, he has made sure that even if the component fails, it should not cause any problem. So he plans such a way that even if component fails before its life, it should fail safely without making you any risk. That is the idea. Safe fail. Failure can be there. Failure can occur. But that failure what is occurred is balanced. You give some additional component for that, some temporary run up along with the existing component, so that if this fails, immediately that will start. And till you repair this, that will function till then. So like this, we'll look into the example also in the coming slides. So this is what is fail-safe design concept or safe fail design concept. Even if component fails, it should fail safely and it should not disturb the functioning. or it should not cause any risk to the operator. Okay, that is fail safe. Safe life means the number 2 point. Safe life means component should not fail at all till the defined life. Third one, fail safe means even if component fails before defined life, it should fail safe way without causing any disruption with its function or its service. Okay. And the last one is damage tolerance design. It is with respect to fracture mechanics based approach. Two-stage models also we can apply here in damage tolerant design. So we design the structure to tolerate existing damage up to certain cycle. So fracture mechanics basic is what? Every material has a flaw. That means every material has a damage, but the component should work even with the existing damage to certain number of cycle. That is the idea of damage tolerant design. Okay. I hope you got now very clear understanding with each of these points. Anyone want any further clarification? If not, we'll look this into detail with each again, so that any doubts you have, it will be clarified. Okay. So safe life design was actually in the olden days earlier developed for aerospace industries, and even now also people use this approach. That means till defined number of flight. For aircraft and all, as an engineer, you have to tell this flight, this aeroplane can make so many number of flight. That is it. After that, they have to mandatorily retire it from service, or else governments will not provide approval for that plane. Even you ask that aeroplane is past so many years of flights or so many number of flights. Now I want to take it for one more flight. Please approve. Nobody is going to approve. Okay, without valid inspection. That is safe life. Components should not fail at all. In high risk applications, you can plan for this. Example is aerospace industry. So typical cyclic load spectra, which are imposed on the structural or component in service, are first determined, maybe by experiments. You take sensors, measure it. Very difficult. Every time real-time practical scenario prediction is difficult. For that, you can take factor of safety. Now, on the basis of this information, you can plan your component, you can design, you can estimate, you apply suitable theory, whichever the theory you want to apply, strain life, high cycle life, whichever, depending on the risk involved with the each component. And at the end of the expected life, you can take that component from service. Automatically, that component is going to retire from service. This is the idea of having safe life design. Okay. But you can think, though you take that component from service, there could be some surplus life left with the component. That is possible. Okay, that is why some people, are interested with second-hand buying. As a first owner, you think that its life is done. I am selling. I don't want to take risk. The second owner who want to buy second-hand, he may be thinking that yes, I will utilize till how much it will give. I will utilize. That way, what is the remaining shelf life is there with the component, it can, the other person may utilize. Okay, usually the second-hand buyers, this I'm talking from engineering point of view. Second-hand lathe machine, not your vehicle sale. Okay, vehicle sale anyways has got certain norms of 15 years or 20 years life. That is different because it is causing threat to others, not to the buyer. Other persons also, when you are traveling in a road, the accident may happen. That is the reason not permitted. Certain machineries, lathe and all, for example, bigger companies, initially olden day lathe were there. When they scrap it, the small scale industries go and purchase and they are going to use. But it is not guaranteed that it will perform fully. It depending on their luck. Some machines work fine, some machines do not work. Okay, maybe with the battery nowadays. As a standard rule, what company tells, we'll give warranty up to 3 years. So good MNCs, what they do, they buy new battery, use for 3 years, and then they are not taking any chance. They simply discard that and they buy new. And these second-hand batteries, after 3 years, somebody else will buy who cannot afford high cost. He buy this at very cheap price as a scrap rate and then uses it. Whatever the life he can get, that is bonus for him. So these are all the things. So that you should not think when you go for safe life design. The idea here is actual component from the day of put into service should survive only for the defined life. After that, surplus is a different issue. Okay, fine. So this procedure invariably has to account for several unknowns such as unexpected changes in load condition, errors while operation, some overloads, some mistakes might happen. So for all this, designer need to take some cushion, some factor of safety if you want to make his component not to fail for defined life. Okay, so these points are well aware, you can understand by reading itself. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if fatigue cracks are nucleated in the component during the service, then the component may fail catastrophically. If anywhere some problem happens because of overload, for example, as a designer, you tell you should not operate or apply 100 kilonewton load, but it doesn't happen like that. You know our Indian conditions. We take for one cause, we use it for another several other causes. Therefore, as a designer, you should be careful enough. You tell that, yes, this has to be used only for this purpose. But we have a habit of using it for multiple purpose. And from that purpose, maybe sometimes problems will come. Okay, unexpected load arises and component might create some damage. Such issues lot of time happens if you look into Journal of Failure Analysis. In that, several such case studies available, or if you contact certain industry personnel who is into the warranty claims, warranty related claim issues, with them if you discuss, they will tell you several such examples, how that component is damaged, how the customer is claiming, he is claiming for what. So there are several such reasons that you have to plan for. Okay. So safe life approach depends on achieving specified life without the development of fatigue crack. Ideally without the development of fatigue crack, because we have seen once crack is developed, then it takes very small number of cycles to propagate and cause complete fracture. Therefore, best way to avoid crack initiation itself. Okay, or at least to reach up to crack initiation, and once crack is initiated, take that out from the service. Now, fail-safe design. Now, it is based on the argument that even if the component of a large structure or the any design what you have made is going to fail, it should not cause any destruction to the service or function. It should safely fail, and some backup or something you have to keep already, so that with that at least it has to continue its service to some extent till a person comes and notifies there is a damage. Okay, and then he can stop the machine and take this component. That way also it can be planned, or some sub-assembly, sub-component may be there. Once this fails, automatically that starts. So in a critical cases where there are critical components, etc. are there, this type of design can be planned, but obviously this comes with the higher cost to you as a designer, because you have to plan some additional safety feature so that when it fails, with the some warning, some indication, or even with the failed mode, it survives for some more cycles till someone comes and identify that and stop the operation, etc. Okay, so that way design it is. Fail safe means if the component is failing, it should fail safely. It should not cause any destruction straightforward. Okay. So in this case, maybe you can plan for crack arresters. So even though crack develop, you have strengthened it already in your design with some plate. Okay, that will prevent the crack propagation to some extent, and easily the maintenance engineer can detect the failure and then he can suggest for replacement of that part. Okay, so that way can be planned. The fail-safe approach mandates periodic inspection. So this is mandatory in this particular design if you are planning for. Okay. So I try to identify what is wrong with the machine. This is what commonly nowadays industries are following: continuous condition monitoring, especially in the petrochemical industry, pumping, where there is a lot of pumping and other equipments, vibration related components, manufacturing, machining industries, even the manufacturing plants. Continuous monitoring of equipment is there. They monitor temperature rise because that is one of the failure indication. Rise in temperature, abrupt vibrations. That is one more failure indicator. We have seen that in our first chapter. Various failure indicators, how a person can identify there is a failure. There are various ways. So through condition monitoring, keep on monitoring. That frequency depends on the company to company and the product, its risk involved. In some places, every hour they will take data. Some places, daily once they will take data. That means even if the component fails after he takes data today, till tomorrow he comes to check, it has to survive. That type of design you have to make with the fail-safe design philosophy. Okay. So this step actually eliminates dangerous consequences, and only you can think about this in the case where you can continuously monitor. Say for flight, you may think we will plan this, but what happens in a flight, during a flight, if some damage comes, okay, and it is unable to land, then it is an issue. Therefore, for flight, previous one is better. Safe life. Nothing should come. No failure should come. If you plan for this, then you are going for a much critical, little bit risk involved design. Then you have to plan such a way that even if it fails, somehow it comes down and lands and nothing will happen to the passengers. Okay. So recognize this fail-safe design means that some structural damage, some crack initiation, its propagation is there, but you have to plan such a way that you can take some corrective measure before it fails. Okay, so that is the oral example. Simple example is in pressure vessel, leak before burst. This is one of the best example we can provide. This is common, leak before it burst. If a pressure vessel burst suddenly, you can imagine. Okay, so in that case, small place they will keep always a little bit weaker. From there, little bit leakage will come, or from safety wall maybe. You can release certain pressure from there and some leakage is there here and there. Immediately person will understand from the regular hole something is happened, maybe blockage is there or something, pressure is not releasing, then some preventive action can be taken. So that way, this is one of the example for that. Leak before burst is best example for fail-safe design. The other one is damage tolerant, the final one. This is actually fracture mechanics based approach. Here we can take about two concepts together, fail safe and monitor continuously, and then apply corrective measure throughout till you think that the component has a damage which cannot be corrected further. Then you can take the component from retire from the service. Okay, up to where you can take that with the corrective measure, you can go on taking it. Now condition monitoring here again using NDT technique becomes very critical with this method of design also. After every cycle or after certain number of cycle, continuously monitoring of the crack is required here. How much crack has grown after 10 cycle? After another 10 cycle, how much crack is grown? Now look for the crack growth rate. If crack growth rate is increasing, then next reading you have to take within 5 cycles. Okay, so this idea designer should have, he should tell this to the maintenance engineer in this case, if this damage tolerant design is planned for. Okay, it can tolerate existing damage till certain number of cycles, but continuous monitoring is required in this case again. Okay. So based on all these design discussions, we have various fatigue life prediction methods that we have already, that is what our further chapters are. Just to brief here once, we have stress life approach, strain life approach, fatigue fracture mechanics based approach, and two-stage model. So two-stage model we are not discussing much in our subject course here. If you are taking BTech honors course, if this is available, this is a course of MTech fully, one semester full fatigue of material course is there. There you can study little bit more onto this. In the second semester of MTech, there is fracture mechanics course, one full semester course on fracture mechanics. There you can take more details on the fracture side. We'll look into the balanced version into in this course. Okay, fine. So This is all we'll see when we go into the corresponding chapters. So SN-Drive approach, you know now, high cycle fatigue regime we'll use. It is stress based, quite simple. The idea here is not to exceed the stress levels beyond endurance limit is very less. That is not possible. At least 10 to the power 3. I want to say here rather than endurance limit, we'll say don't exceed fatigue strength. Fatigue strength. Okay, endurance limit is if you do not exceed endurance limit, you are planning for infinite life design. The approach what we have discussed. Number one, we told about infinite life design. So if you talk about do not exceed fatigue strength, then I am talking about safe life design. So with what context we are talking with respect to that, we can frame the statements here. So it is very difficult for a design engineer to identify or any common person unless and until design engineer states clearly. So your objective question framing is much easy for me to confuse you. The same statement I can give, but with what context it is given, that is very important. So we can say don't exceed endurance limit. That will give you infinite life model. If we say don't exceed fatigue strength, that will take you into the safe life design model. Okay. So understanding is required here, not something by hearting will not work here. For this is the set of rule. For this is the set of rule. Like that, guidelines are not there. This is a specialized engineering course directly applied in the industry. Okay. I think a few days back I have received a mail from your previous student. Maybe next class I will show you where he was highlighting how this course is useful for him and how it is beneficial for him and how he is applying that. He is working in aircraft industry only. Maybe next class I will look into that if possible. There are certain details he has mentioned that I have to remove about the company and all. Next class maybe just to highlight the importance of the course. I will show you that. Okay, fine. Okay, so yeah, this is about strain life approach. We'll look into strain life approach and fracture mechanics approach. Anyways, entire course we have one chapter each onto this. We'll look into there. That time I'll highlight. Okay, the summary difference and all by the end, you must be in a position to highlight what is the difference between each and every process. Now you have some idea with our present discussion. You can make out with the next. Okay, fine. So this is all not required for yours. This we'll see later only. Okay, that is okay. Up to here, it is enough as far as the first chapter. If you understand clearly what is the difference between various models, various design approaches, etc., is sufficient. We look into now the high cycle fatigue approach, the chapter 2. Okay. Fatigue analysis with the stress life approach. And stress life approach is only limited or it is said to be suitable only in the high cycle fatigue regime. Okay. Even in the high cycle fatigue regime, as I have said, between 10 to the power 3 to 10 to the power 6 number of cycle, this will give you approximate result. SN approach up to 10 to the power 3 to 10 to the power 6 is giving approximate result, not accurate. Okay, for accurate result here, we have to go for strain life in this region also. Less than 10 to the power 3, if you are talking about anything less than 10 to the power 3, you cannot use HCF, high cycle fatigue life approach, cannot be used. This is hard and fast rule. You should not use at all. If you have used, that design is gone. Straightforward, it is wrong. If you are designing for a life less than 10 to the power 3. If you are using a component, if you are planning to design for a life between 10 to the power 3 to 10 to the power 6 with steel material or 10 to the power 7 for titanium and nickel alloy and 10 to the power 8 for copper and aluminum alloys. If you are planning to design, use SN approach for this life range, then SN approach will give you approximate result. Approximate result. As you increase your lives, maybe 10 to the power 5 onwards, so 10 to the power 4 and greater, 10 to the power 4 and greater, the result accuracy becomes more and more good, more and more good, more and more precise. Okay, therefore this approach is sufficient enough to consider. Very high cycle fatigue, that is greater than 10 to the power 6. Definitely this approach is best. Yes, an approach simple to use, nothing to worry much, straightforward. You use this. Greater than 10 to the power 6, no problem. Less than 10 to the power 6 to 10 to the power 3 range, approximate solution. You have to careful with your design. Still your values are right. You can go ahead in this region. Okay, but less than 10 to the power 3, definitely this approach is not possible to use. Okay. So in this chapter, we will see first various types of cyclic load. Now this discussion is required throughout, not only for this chapter, the types of load is throughout. For all the topic, it is there, various type of load. So only once I will highlight here. Then with respect to high cycle fatigue, we'll look into various other parameter in this particular chapter. Okay. So coming to the load, some introduction I have provided to you in the previous classes. Importantly, you have to talk about two type of load. Okay. One is completely reversed. Other one is fluctuating, where there is non-zero type of direct component is there. DC means direct component of the stress. I will say instead of DC, I will write as a mean, sum average constant stress. What is mentioned here, sigma m, is always there whenever you are applying this particular load cycle. Okay. Completely reversed means, earlier also I have said, sigma max you have here at this point, sigma minimum you have here. So this every time you take it from your minimum to maximum, always the magnitude is not changing, as well as the sigma values, sigma minimum is equal to opposite signature of sigma max. So tension compression, you pull for positive side 50 Newton. In the negative side also you provide now. So here it is 0. This is tension, upper side it is tension. Then you go back to 0. Now start compressing up to, you reach up to minus 50 Newton. So with this continuously same magnitude, it has to be max and minimum. Magnitude is same, sign is different. So tension compression, fully reversed tension compression load is the best example for completely reversed loading cycle. Where fluctuating means the nature is similar to this, but here we are not having completely reversed. Okay, I can have even it is starting from 0, somewhere 50, and compression I may take only 25. Then go to 50, similarly only 25, go to 50, only 25. Any type of loading pattern we can have for non-zero mean stress. Let us look into these terminologies. What is meant by mean stress, how to obtain that, you can observe with this diagram. Okay. Here you can observe we have some max, sigma max, we have some sigma minimum. So maximum amplitude of the load applied and minimum amplitude of the load applied. All together we have now several terminology. One is alternating stress, or we say stress amplitude. Sigma A, stress amplitude. So sigma max minus sigma minimum divided by 2, whatever you get, that is the alternating stress amplitude. Alternating, I would like to say alternating stress amplitude. So how much value you will get for sigma A, that much amount of the stress is cyclical in the component. When you add this sigma max plus sigma minimum by 2, you take average, then you have here mean stress. Sigma m indicates here mean stress. This value, whatever you get, is constant in the component. Whenever you apply a loading cycle of defined stress range sigma r, sometimes it is also referred as delta sigma. Okay, delta sigma or sigma r, both notations have been used. So whenever you apply a sigma minimum and sigma maximum type of load, then one small component, that is average of that, is constantly it is there in the material, and one cyclic variation amplitude is there, that is sigma amplitude. You are applying load from sigma max to sigma minimum. Again, you are going for sigma max to sigma minimum. But in the process of applying this load, the component experiences two load components, two stress component. One is mean, which is constantly there in the component, and one is alternating stress, the fluctuating stress, which is there in the component. Okay, so these two are required for us. Depending on this, we have to use our corresponding equation, and to define the various type of loads we commonly use. If you look at any fatigue related journal, paper, or anywhere you look into, you find this word stress ratio, or most famously people indicate with R value. R value. People say, what is R value of the load? That will tell you whether the load what you applied is completely reversed, or tension or compression or tension compression. What is the nature of the load? You can predict by this R value. In the next slide, I will show you that image. It is a ratio of sigma minimum by sigma max. You have to just understand it is a ratio of minimum stress by the maximum stress. Okay, here one note is given. If R value is -1, then it is a completely reversed stress pattern. What do you mean by completely reversed? I will sketch here. This is 0. Let us say I am applying for 50 Newton plus, here it is minus 50 Newton. Completely reversed loading pattern. Now here if you take R value, sigma minimum is -50, sigma maximum is +50. I have value -1. Okay. If I want to take alternating stress sigma A here, which is sigma max minus of sigma minimum, minus of -50 divided by 2. So I have 50 Newton alternating or fluctuating stress. For this case, if I want to take now sigma mean, it is 50 plus sigma minimum, sigma max plus sigma minimum, which is -50 divided by 2. So 0 by 2, I have 0. That is what is written here with 0 mean stress. So whenever the R value -1 is there, it indicates we have applied completely reversed alternating stress, which do not cause any mean stress in the component. All other type of loading patterns will cause some amount of constant load in the component and some amount of alternating load in the component. Only this particular case, when the tension and compression side loadings are equal in magnitude, or stress ratio is equal to -1, in this case, we say it is a completely reversed loading pattern, or 0 mean stress load. All other loads are with some mean or non-zero mean stress type of loads. Okay, I will just show you here once. I think it is time. After this, we'll end. So here you can observe R value -1 means mean stress is 0, no mean stress. We have some minimum which is equal to the sigma max. So this is sigma max here, and other side it is sigma minimum. So ratio, if you take sigma minimum minus sigma max, R value -1 indicates it is a tension compression type of fully reversed loading. Now if R value is 0, this type of load pattern is known as repeated loading. Now in our common language, we say repeated means cyclic. Here theoretically in fatigue and fracture subject, you have to say cyclic load. Okay, we will not say repeated load when a load is repeatedly applied. We say when a load is cyclically applied. The moment you say repeatedly applied, it becomes repeated load. This is what is repeated load. Intermittent, discrete pattern we'll say. So the name for this load is repeated load. Only this one. What do you mean by repeated load? The moment you find the word repeated load in your question paper, you should think, always consider sigma minimum is 0. It is written here. Sigma L is 0. Sigma minimum is 0. 0 to maximum. Sigma max. From again max to 0 and 0 to maximum. Release the load. Come back to 0. Again apply 0 to maximum. This is known as repeated loading pattern. So whenever you find repeated load, by default you have to consider this. Do not take a misconception that cyclic loads are assumed to be repeated. Okay. Repeated load is a cyclic load, but all cyclic loads are not repeated loads. In our common language, when we speak in general and open without understanding about the fatigue, we say repeated when the load is applied repeatedly. That is our general speaking language. But technically, here you can observe title I have mentioned as a cyclic load. In cyclic load, there are various classification. The first one is completely reversed. Okay, completely reversed. Completely reversed alternating load. Completely reversed alternating load. The second one, what I have written here is a repeated load. Repeated load. Okay. So repeated load can be 0 to tension side maximum, or it can be somewhere around maximum is 0 and then it is going to minimum value, some minimum value. Minimum to minimum you have here, sigma minimum you have, but sigma maximum is 0. So here U means upper stress or maximum. Rather I can write sigma maximum. So sigma max here is 0. Sigma minimum is some value, maybe minus 50 or minus 100, whatever you want to take. From there, within that only it is going. Minus 100 to 0. Then again, go on loading till you achieve the minus 100 compression. Release the load. It will come back to 0. Apply again the load. So this pattern. Okay. So in this case, if you take R values, R value definition is sigma minimum by sigma maximum. Okay. Whenever you come across a term R value minus infinity, R value minus infinity, that means that you are applying only compressive load from 0 to some compression, 0 to compression. So people will not tell in any fatigue, you open up any fatigue journal and see any case studies you open and see, they will not tell in words. They will tell that R value minus infinity type load is applied. R value 0 type of load is applied. R value minus 1 type of load is applied. Now you must understand what it is, what it means, what is the nature of the load, what is applied. Okay. So here we have fully compression load. Fully compression. So compression. And here we have tension. Another side. Okay. Tension. Now this R value may vary here. Here it is say given 0.5 as standard, assuming the sigma minimum and sigma max, the difference between them is only 2 times. Thinking that this value is given, it can be of any value. Usually this is standard in the tension and tension compression. You will go from existing value to the maximum, come back to there, go from there again to the maximum, come back. So that is the general cyclic process. Okay. So whenever it is set R value 0.5, it is tension type of load. R value 2, it is compression type of loading. Okay. So these are all type of load possible you can apply over a component. Not only this much, there is one more alternating, but mean stress is not 0. I can have up to here compression side little bit, up to here compression side little bit. You compare the difference with fully reversed, completely reversed, and here what I have drawn. Okay, so sigma minimum I have here, sigma maximum we have here, but some sigma minimum is there. So for this R value is minus sigma minimum, some sigma minimum is there, some sigma max is there. Okay, it is possible. Or we can have, you know, a reverse way, compression side larger, sigma minimum larger, and sigma maximum smaller. That is possible. Okay, these are all various category of load pattern what we can apply. So that is enough, I think, for today's class. Here you can observe again in this image various type of loading. So whenever you find repeated load, please don't consider as a straightforward any type of cyclic. It is only this type of cyclic load we'll put as a in the category of repeated load. Okay, so fully reversed, tension compression, fully reversed. This is fully reversed, what is shown here. Other one could be tension or compression or tension compression is possible. Say small tension, maybe large compression, anyone. Small tension, large compression. Here also R value -1, not -1 in this case. It is all non-zero mean stress. That means mean stress is non-zero in these particular cases, all these particular cases. Okay, so I can have here a value R 0.1, 0.5. If I have some load here, compression, then I can have R value 2 or any value in between 0.5 or 2. But the difference is it should not be R value -1. R value -1 indicates completely reversed. Then in reality, you can have various type of load pattern. Say as you start your vehicle, one type of load. Then when you are moving, then one more type of load. And again, when you are switching off, another type of load. For example, it is what is shown. But here constant amplitude cycle multiple times. We say this type of load pattern as variable amplitude loading. Variable amplitude loading, but constant amplitudes. Amplitudes are remain constant for that particular duration. Up to here, one type of load, S1. Next, another stress level load, S2. Then one more, S3. And then you know, highly reality condition, random loading. What is shown here, fully random. In reality, this is the case, most practical case. We have to then simplify, and bring this to the variable amplitude loading level for analysis. Our fatigue analysis is only with respect to this. Sophisticated software means you can use random loading. Okay, what we see in our theory course, we will only talk up to variable amplitude load handling. Highly random load handling we cannot, but there are softwares to count the number of cycles from this random loading. That is the procedure even happening at the background of any softwares. Okay, a rain count method is there, various methods are there, droplet method, there are many fatigue counting methods are there, cycle counting methods that people will adopt, and they will convert the load history to the variable amplitude, and then we will apply the corresponding equation. Directly applying the random load as it is and analyzing is very difficult case. Okay, so with this I will conclude our session. Yeah, anyone have any query?
So
Yeah,
is R
please.
equal to -infinity also a repeated load?
Pardon?
Is R equal to -infinity also a repeated load?
Here, yeah, yes,
Sigma max is 0.
Yes. Usually we do not have R equal to -infinity as a repeated load. Such applications are rare. Our general applications usually like this, R0. You pull from 0, again you release. You pull from 0 and release. From 0, you are compressing to some value, then coming back to 0. Applications are rare, but it is. These both are same. Okay. The R value is varying because of your ratio. Here you see sigma minimum is 0. The definition of R is sigma max by sigma minimum by sigma max. So 0 by any value of sigma max you will get, you have 0. In other case, here what happens? It is sigma minimum, but bottom you have 0. Therefore, it is infinity. It is only a math which is giving you this. Okay. practical scenario is once you are only having in the compression side, other case you are only having in the tension side.
Yes,
Okay.
understood.
But remember, one of the parameter must be 0. Either sigma max or sigma minimum. Then only we say it is a repeated load case.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, that is it. We'll wind up for today. Any other queries are there? Please ask. If not, we'll start with the other things in the next class. Okay. So this is just for your looking. You just observe this image and try to interpret what and all type of load these structures can experience. Common engineering application. It is just for your viewing. That is it. I don't want to comment here much. You can make out all common day-to-day life components. Every time they are experiencing different loading, whether it is a bell, whether it is some bridge, whether it is a ship or some automobile or aircraft or wind turbines, any power transmission device, machines, machine tools, whatever you take in your day-to-day life, or simple, wheel carts, whatever. Every time it is random loading, but somewhere we have to identify and make it as a variable amplitude loading. Okay, that is it. Any other things? Anybody have any query? Okay, if no queries, next class we'll start with our SN approach equations and other things. Okay, these are all various load pattern. I just put it. It's okay. That's not required. From here we'll start next class SN course. Okay. If there are no queries, I will end our today's meeting. Thank you all for joining for today's session. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.